The grand chamber of the Galactic Council was filled with the usual noise of 1,000 species talking at once. Translators hummed in every ear. Diplomats argued over trade routes. Bureaucrats complained about paperwork. It was an ordinary day in the heart of galactic civilization. Ambassador VTH Curran of the Thasari Empire sat in his floating chair half asleep. He had served on the council for nearly 200 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched species evolve from primitive to advanced. Very little surprised him anymore. The main doors of the chamber suddenly opened with a loud boom. Clear's throat. Every head turned. Every conversation stopped. The Vorka Dominion's delegation marched in like they owned the place. The Vorkath were a reptilian species, tall and covered in dark green scales. They walked on 2 legs and had 4 arms. Their eyes were yellow and cold. They had joined the council only 50 years ago, and in that time they had conquered 12 systems. They were aggressive, proud, and they believed that strength was the only thing that mattered. Their high ambassador, a massive creature named Drax Volomak, walked to the center podium. He did not wait for permission to speak. He simply activated the holographic display and smiled with his rows of sharp teeth. Members of the Galactic Council, he announced, his voice booming through the chamber. The Vorkath Dominion brings glorious news. Our expansion continues. Our fleet is currently traveling to claim a new system in the Outer Arm, a system rich in resources, a system that has been ignored by this council for too long. Several ambassadors leaned forward with mild interest. The Outer Arm was considered a backwater region. Few species bothered with it. We will bring civilization to these primitive. Drax continued proudly. We will add their resources to our empire. We will show them the strength of the Dominion. The council speaker, a floating cloud of gas from the Nabari collective, pulsed with soft light. Ambassador Volomak, which system are you referring to? The council requires documentation for any expansion into unclaimed territory. Drax waved one of his 4 hands. Dismissively, the system is called Sol. The planet we will conquer is called Earth by its inhabitants. Our scouts have confirmed they are a primitive species. They have barely left their own planet. They will provide excellent labor for our mining operations. The chamber went completely silent. VTH Curran's eyes snapped open. His heart began to beat faster. Surely he had misheard. Surely the Vorkth were not that foolish. The silence stretched on. No one moved. No one spoke. Even the ever-talking bureaucrats had frozen in their seats. Drax looked around with confusion. He had expected protests about territory. He had expected weak species begging him to reconsider. He had not expected this strange, heavy silence. Is there a problem? He asked. Ambassador Corrin slowly rose from his chair. His old bones protested. But this was too important. He had to speak. He had to try. Ambassador Volomech said, keeping his voice calm, did you say Earth, the 3rd planet in the Sol system, the home world of the species called humans? Drax nodded proudly. Yes, our scouts have watched them for months. They are weak. They fight among themselves. They have primitive weapons. 300 of our warships will be more than enough to conquer them. A sound rippled through the chamber. It took Bait a moment to identify it. Some species were laughing nervously. Others were making sounds of disbelief. A few were simply leaving as if they wanted to be far away. When the consequences arrived, 300 ships VTH repeated slowly. He sat back, down suddenly feeling very tired. You have sent 300 ships to attack Earth. More than enough, Drax said confidently. Then you have sent 300 ships to die. Drax's yellow eyes narrowed. Is that a threat, old one? It is not a threat, it is a fact. VTH looked around at his fellow ambassadors. Many of them were nodding. Many wore expressions of deep concern, not for the humans, for the Vorketh. Ambassador Kira Seth of the Mandari Federation stood up. Her blue skin was pale with worry. Hi, Ambassador, I urge you to recall your fleet immediately. Send emergency communications. Stop this before it is too late. Too late for what? Drax demanded. For the primitives, they should be honored to join the Dominion. Too late for your fleet, Kira said quietly. Too late for your empire. Perhaps too late for all of us. Drax slammed his fist on the podium. Enough of this nonsense. Why does the Council cower before a species that cannot even travel between stars properly? Our scouts confirm they have no fleet, no planetary defenses, nothing that can challenge us. Your scouts saw what the humans wanted them to see, VTH said. Chamber erupted into chaos. Species that had been enemies for centuries were suddenly united in their concern. They argued, shouted, and gestured wildly. The speaker tried to restore order, but it was impossible. A young Vorkath aide moved closer to Drax, looking confused. High Ambassador, I do not understand. Why are they so afraid? We have conquered dozens of species. What makes these humans different? Before Drax could answer, old Ambassador Corrin spoke. Again, his voice was soft, but somehow it cut through all the noise. Everyone stopped to listen. 200 years ago, VTH began. A species called the Seathani found Earth. They were slavers. They took 5,000 humans from a coastal region. They thought humans would make excellent workers. He paused, gathering his thoughts. The chamber was completely silent. Within 10 years, the Cathani civilization was gone, not conquered, not defeated, gone, erased. Every planet they had colonized was empty. Every ship they had built was dust. Every database they had created was corrupted beyond recovery. We do not know exactly what happened. The humans have never explained. They simply made the Seathani disappear from the universe. Drax shifted uncomfortably. That is just a story, propaganda to scare away competitors. I wish it were, Bates said. Sadly, 60 years ago, the Neth Collective tried to infiltrate human computer networks. They wanted to steal human technology. Do you know what happened? No one answered. The humans responded by uploading a virus into every Neth ship simultaneously. But they did not destroy them. That would have been merciful. Instead, the virus made every Neth ship broadcast their most secret communications to the entire galaxy. Military plans hidden, crimes, secret deals. The Neth Collective collapsed within a month. Their own allies turned against them. Coincidence? Drax muttered, but his voice was less certain now. When my people first made contact with humanity, Bate continued, we expected to find primitives. Instead, we found a species that had developed faster than light, travel completely on their own. They had created artificial intelligence that actually liked them, and most disturbing of all, they admitted they had been watching the galaxy for decades. Before we even knew they existed, they saw us before we saw them, they understood us before we understood them. And they chose to pretend they were primitive. Why would anyone pretend to be weak? The young Vorkath 8 asked. VTH looked at him with old, tired eyes. Because when you are truly powerful, you do not need to prove it, and because they humans learned something terrible about themselves long ago, they learned that they are very, very good at destroying things. Too good, they nearly destroyed themselves with their own aggression. So they made a choice. They would hide their strength. They would watch. They would wait. They would only reveal themselves if they had no other choice. He turned to Drax. Your fleet has given them no other choice. Drax tried to maintain his confidence, but his scales had turned a lighter shade of green. That was a sign of fear in his species. You cannot know any of this for certain. You are trying to trick me. I'm trying to save you, Bate said simply, but I fear it is already too late. The chamber's main display suddenly activated without anyone touching it. Everyone froze. The display showed a star map zooming in on the solar system. Text appeared in every known galactic language. Message from Earth Defense Command to the Vorkath Dominion. We know you are coming. We know how many ships you have. We know your attack plans. We have known since before your fleet left your space. We give you one chance. Turn back. Do not test us. There will be no second warning. The message ended. The display went dark in the absolute silence that followed. Drax Volomak tried to speak. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. His scales were now almost white. How he finally managed. How did they access our systems? How did they know? That is the wrong question. Bate said quietly. The right question is, will you listen? But even as he asked, Bate knew the answer. The Vorkath were too proud. They had never retreated from anything. They would not start now, even when faced with evidence that they should. Drax straightened his spine. His scales slowly returned to their normal color as he forced himself to be brave. This is a bluff. Advanced hacking is not the same as military power. We will continue as planned. Ambassador Kira buried her face in her hands. Several other diplomats simply got up and left. They wanted no part of what was about to happen. VTH sighed deeply. He had tried. He had failed. All he could do now was wait and hope that somehow the humans would show mercy. They had shown it before. Sometimes, perhaps they would again, but looking at the stubborn set of Drax's jaw, he doubted the Vorkath would make mercy easy. May your gods protect you, VTH said to Drax, because nothing else will. Admiral Thax Koreth stood on the command bridge of the Dominator, the flagship of the Vorkath invasion fleet. 300 warships flew behind him in perfect formation. Each ship was armed with enough weapons to destroy a small moon. Together they represented the greatest military force the Dominion had ever assembled, and yet Koreth felt uneasy. The warning message from Earth had disturbed him more than he wanted to admit. How had the humans accessed the Council's communication systems? How had they known the fleet size and plans? These questions kept him awake at night. He pushed the thoughts away. He was a warrior. He had conquered 6 systems. For the Dominion, he would not be afraid of a primitive species that had barely left their own planet. Admiral, his tactical officer, called out, "We will exit hyperspace in 4 hours. All ships report ready for battle." Koreth nodded. Good. Begin final preparations. As his Crew worked around him. Korath walked too. His private quarters, he needed to review the intelligence files one more time. He needed to understand his enemy. The door closed behind him. He sat at his desk and activated his personal display. The files on humanity appeared. Before him, species human home world. Earth Sol, system classification. Category 3, primitive aggressive threat. Level minimal. Korath scrolled through the basic information. Humans were soft creatures with no scales or claws. They had only 2 arms. They needed to breathe oxygen and could only survive in a narrow temperature range. On paper, they seemed weak, but there were other files that were marked as unconfirmed reports, improbable propaganda. Kor had ignored them before. Now, with 4 hours until battle, he decided to read them. The first file was about something called the Cathani incident. 214 years ago, a species called the Cathani had discovered Earth. The Cathani were slavers who specialized in capturing primitive species for labor. They had landed on Earth's coastline and taken approximately 5,000 humans. At first, everything seemed normal. The humans were transported to Cathani mining colonies. They worked. They obeyed. They seemed to accept their fate. Then strange things began to happen. Cathani ships started to malfunction for no reason. Navigation systems failed. Engines exploded. Communication arrays went dark. At first, these seemed like accidents. Then, the accidents became too common to ignore. The human slaves were questioned. They knew nothing. They were just primitive creatures. How could they sabotage advanced technology? The Cathani never found the answer. Within 5 years, their civilization began to collapse. Ships disappeared without trace. Colonies went silent. When rescue teams arrived, they found only empty buildings and no bodies. The Cathani simply vanished, one community at a time. Last Cathani transmission ever recorded was from their home world. It was just one sentence: they are here, they are everywhere, they are then nothing. When investigators finally reached the Cathani home world, they found it empty. Every city was intact. Every home still had food in the kitchen, but there were no Cathani, not one body, not one survivor. An entire species of 12 billion individuals had simply ceased to exist. The 5,000 human slaves were never recovered either. It was assumed they had died with their captors. Korath closed the file. His hands were shaking slightly. He told himself it was just a story. There was no proof that humans were responsible. The Cathani could have been destroyed by disease or civil war, or any number of other causes. He opened the second file. This one was about the Neth Collective. The Neth were a species of forked minds. They shared thoughts through electronic connections. They were brilliant hackers who could infiltrate almost any computer system. 63 years ago, they decided to infiltrate human networks and steal their technology. The NE expected primitive systems. They expected easy access. What they found was something different. At first, they thought they had succeeded. They downloaded enormous amounts of data, military plans, scientific research, government secrets. They celebrated their victory. Then the data started to change. Files that had been clear became corrupted. Information that had seemed valuable turned out to be false. And worst of all, the Neth discovered that for every piece of data they had stolen, the humans had stolen 10 pieces from them. The humans had let The Neth in on purpose, they had fed them false information while downloading everything the Neth wanted to keep secret. Then the broadcast began. Every Neth ship in the galaxy suddenly started transmitting. They broadcast Neth military secrets to everyone who could listen. Hidden weapons caches, secret alliance deals, evidence of crimes against other species. The broadcast continued for 72 hours without stopping. The Neth collective collapsed within a month. Their allies turned against them. Their enemies attacked them. Their own population revolted when they learned what their leaders had done. By the end, the Neth were begging for mercy from the very species they had tried to rob. Humans never publicly took credit. They never admitted anything, but everyone knew. Korath closed that file too. His scales had turned pale again. He forced himself to breathe slowly. These were just stories, he reminded himself. Propaganda. The humans were clever at spreading fear, that was all. He opened the third file. This one was labeled simply First Contact Theory Report. 200 years ago, the Thesari Empire had sent a research vessel to study the soul system. They expected to find a primitive civilization, perhaps one that used basic radio signals, perhaps one that was just beginning to explore their own moon. What they found terrified them. The human vessel that met them was unlike anything the Thesari had seen. It did not match any known design. Its engines operated on principles the Thesari could not understand, and it had been waiting for them at the exact coordinates where they had planned to exit hyperspace. The humans had known they were coming. They had calculated the Thesari approach vector before the Thesari had even decided to visit. The human captain had greeted them politely. He spoke perfect Thesari, a language he should have had no way to learn. He explained that humanity had been monitoring galactic communications for approximately 100 years. They knew about the Thesari, they knew about the Council, they knew about every major species in the galaxy, and they had chosen to remain hidden. When the Thesari captain asked why, the human had smiled sadly. Because we know what we are, he had said. We know what we are capable of. Long ago we nearly destroyed ourselves. We nearly turned our own planet into a lifeless rock. We have learned to control our aggression, but we never forget what lives inside us. We hide because we do not trust ourselves to use our power wisely. Not yet. The Thesari had asked what the humans wanted. We want to be left alone. The human head replied, we want to watch, we want to learn, and someday, when we are ready, we want to be friends, but we are not ready yet, and neither is the galaxy. The Thesari had honored that request. They had kept humanity's true nature secret. They had spread false reports about primitive radio signals in early space exploration. They had protected the human secret for 200 years until now. Korath closed the final file. He sat in silence for a long time. Part of him wanted to turn the fleet around. Part of him wanted to run away and never look back. These stories painted a picture of a species that was far more dangerous than anything he had ever faced, but he could not retreat. The Dominion did not retreat. His emperor had given him orders. His honor demanded that he obey. Besides, he told himself these were just stories. The Thesser were known for exaggeration. The Cathani incident could have many explanations. The Neth had been fools who deserved their fate. 300 Vorkath warships against one primitive planet. The math was simple. Victory was certain. His communicator beeped. Admiral, we are approaching the Sol system. We will exit hyperspace in 30 minutes. Understood. Core replied. All ships to battle stations. Prepare for immediate engagement upon arrival. He stood up and walked back to the bridge. His officers looked at him with confident expressions. They believed in him. They believed in the Dominion. They believed that victory was their destiny. Core took his position in the command chair. Status report. All weapons charged. All shields at maximum. All crews at battle stations. We are ready. Admiral Korath nodded. Good. Today we add a new jewel to the Dominion's crown. Today we show the galaxy that no species can hide from our strength. His crew cheered. Their enthusiasm was contagious. Korath felt his confidence returning. The countdown continued. 20 minutes. 15, 10, 5. Exiting hyperspace in 3, 2, 1. The stars stretched and blurred as the fleet dropped out of faster than light travel. The blackness of space snapped back into focus, and Admiral Korath's confidence died. The tactical display lit up with contacts. Not 10, not 100,000, 14,000 ships surrounded the Vorkath fleet in a perfect sphere. Ships of designs that made no sense. Ships that seemed to bend light around them. Ships that were already in attack formation. Weapons powered. Waiting. Admiral, the tactical officer's voice cracked. I am reading 14,000 vessels. They are not moving. They are just waiting. Korath stared at the display. His scales turned white. His 4 hands gripped the arms of his chair so hard that the metal bent. Impossible, he whispered. They are supposed to be primitive. They are supposed to have no fleet. His communications officer spoke up, her voice trembling. Admiral, we are receiving a transmission, audio only. Play it. A human voice filled the bridge. It was calm, almost bored, as if the speaker was commenting on the weather, not facing an invasion fleet. Vorkath fleet, this is Earth defense. Command, you have entered sovereign human space with hostile intent. We warned you. You did not listen. You now have exactly one opportunity to power down your weapons and surrender. You will not receive another chance. Transmission ended. 300 Vorkath warships floated in the middle of 14,000 human vessels. The hunters had become the prey. The conquerors had become the conquered, and Admiral Korath finally understood why the entire Galactic Council had looked at his people with pity. Admiral Korath stared at the tactical display. The numbers had not changed. 14,000 human ships still surrounded his fleet. They had not moved. They had not fired. They simply waited like predators watching wounded prey. The bridge was silent. Every officer stood frozen at their station. The confidence that had filled them minutes ago was gone. In its place was cold, deep fear. Korath forced himself to think. He was an admiral of the Vorkath Dominion. He had won battles against worse odds. He had found victory when everyone said it was impossible. He would not surrender to fear. Now, analysis, he demanded. What are we facing? His tactical officer worked at his console with shaking hands. Admiral, the enemy vessels do not match any known configuration. I cannot identify their weapon systems. I cannot determine their shield types. My scanners are giving me contradictory readings. It is as if their ships exist in multiple states at once. What does that mean? I do not. No, sir, our technology cannot explain. What I'm seeing, Korra's jaw tightened. What about weaknesses every fleet has? Weaknesses, I cannot find any, sir. Their formation is perfect. There are no gaps, no blind spots, and they have positioned themselves so that if we fire in any direction, we will hit our own ships with crossfire. One of the younger officers spoke up. Admiral, perhaps we should consider the human offer, perhaps. No, Korra's voice cut through the air. Like a blade, we do not surrender. We are Vorketh. We would rather die with honor than live with shame. With respect, Admiral, the officer continued, his voice trembling. This is not a battle we can win. The numbers alone, I said. No. Korath rose from his chair. We will show these humans that Vorkath warriors do not bow to anyone. Prepare to attack. Target the largest vessels. First, his crew hesitated. They looked at each other with desperate eyes. But they were soldiers. They had sworn oaths. Slowly, reluctantly, they returned to their stations. Weapons are charged, the weapons officer reported. All ships confirm readiness. Kor took a deep breath. Fire. 300 warships unleash their weapons. Simultaneously, plasma bolts, swarms, and energy beams erupted toward the human fleet. It was the largest single attack the Dominion had ever launched, enough firepower to crack a planet. The weapon's fire traveled approximately 100 km, then it stopped. Korath blinked. The plasma bolts hung in space, frozen like insects in amber. The missiles had halted mid-flight. The energy beams had simply ended their tips, glowing harmlessly in the void. What happened? Kor demanded. Why did our weapons stop? I do not understand. Admiral, some kind of field is holding them in place. Our projectiles are suspended in some form of energy matrix. They cannot move forward. They cannot detonate. The tactical officer looked up with wide eyes. Admiral, they caught our weapons, all of them, without firing a single shot. A new transmission came through, the same calm human voice as before. Admiral Korath, that was your one free demonstration. Your weapons cannot hurt us. Your ships cannot escape us, but we do not want to destroy you. We want to show you something instead. Please direct your attention to your main view screen. Despite himself, Korath looked at the screen. It flickered and changed. The image of the human fleet disappeared. In its place appeared a document, a Vorkath military document marked with the highest security clearance. A document that listed every secret military base the Dominion had hidden throughout the galaxy. Korath felt his blood turn to ice. The document vanished. A new one appeared. This one showed the Dominion's invasion plans for the next 20 years. Every target, every timeline, every resource allocation. Then another document. This one showed personal communications between the Emperor and his generals, private messages that discussed the real reason for the Earth invasion, not resources but a massive energy source that Vorkath scouts had detected beneath one of Earth's oceans. Then another, the Emperor's private financial records, embezzlement, bribes, crimes against his own people. Then another and another and another. The bridge crew watched in horror as every secret the Dominion possessed flashed across their screens. Military secrets, political secrets, personal secrets. Everything. The calm voice returned. We have been inside your network since the day you first considered attacking Earth. We have copies of every file, every communication, every plan your civilization has ever created, we know. The names of your spies and other empires, we know the locations of your hidden weapons caches, we know about the coup your emperor is planning against the Galactic Council. Korath collapsed back into his chair. His strength had left him completely. We could release this information to the galaxy, the voice continued. We could destroy your dominion without firing a single weapon. Your allies would turn against you. Your enemies would tear you apart. Your own people would revolt when they learned what their leaders have done. The screen went dark. Then it showed the face of a human female. She had dark skin and short gray hair. Her eyes were calm but not cold. She looked like someone who had seen too much and learned to accept it. But we do not want to destroy you, she said. Destruction is easy. Any fool with enough weapons can destroy things. We prefer to build. We prefer to help. We prefer to offer choices. Who are you? Kor managed to ask. My name is Admiral Sarah Chen. I command Earth's defensive fleet and I would like to speak with you. Admiral Korath face to face alone. Why? Because I want to offer you something better than destruction. I want to offer you hope. Korath laughed bitterly. You surround my fleet with 14,000 ships. You stop our weapons with technology we cannot understand. You expose our deepest secrets, and now you speak of hope. Yes, Chen said simply. Because hope is what separates us from the monsters we used to be. She paused, letting her words sink in. Long ago, humanity was exactly like the Vorkath. We were aggressive, we were violent, we conquered everything we could reach. We nearly destroyed ourselves a dozen times. We came within hours of extinction through nuclear fire. What changed? Kor asked despite himself. We did slowly, painfully, over centuries of war and suffering. We learned that strength without wisdom is just destruction. We learned that power without mercy is just cruelty. We learned that the greatest victory is not killing your enemy but turning them into a friend. The Vorkath do not believe in such things. The Vorkath believe what they have been taught to believe, just as we once did. Chen leaned forward slightly. Admiral, I am not asking you to surrender. I am not asking you to shame yourself or your people. I am asking you to talk with me, to listen, to consider possibilities that you have never imagined. And if I refuse, then we will release your empire's secrets and the Dominion will collapse within a year. Your emperor will be overthrown. Your military will fragment. Millions of Vorkath will die in civil war, and none of it will be necessary. Chen's expression softened. I do not want that, Admiral. I have seen enough death to last 1,000 lifetimes. I would rather find another way. Korath looked around at his crew. They were watching him with desperate hope. They did not want to die here. They wanted to see their families again. They wanted to live, and Korath realized something. He wanted to live, too, not because he was a coward, but because death here would accomplish nothing. His fleet would be destroyed. His people's secrets would be exposed anyway, and his emperor would learn nothing from the sacrifice. There was no honor in pointless death. If I agree to talk, he said slowly, what guarantees do I have? None, Chen admitted. You will have to trust me. I know that is difficult. I know your culture sees trust as weakness, but sometimes, Admiral, trusting the right person is the bravest thing you can do. Korth closed his eyes. His whole life he had Been told that strength was everything, that mercy was weakness, that enemies must be crushed without hesitation, but the humans had shown him overwhelming strength and chosen mercy. They had every reason to destroy his fleet and chose to talk instead. Perhaps their way was not weakness at all. Perhaps it was something else entirely. Very well, he said finally, I will talk with you. Admiral Chen, send your vessel. Thank you, Admiral Korath. A shuttle is already on its way. Please lower your shields on docking bay 7. Kor gave the order. His crew obeyed with evident relief. As they waited, one of his officers approached quietly. Admiral, are we surrendering? Korath considered the question. No, he said finally. We are doing something harder than surrendering. We are keeping an open mind. The officer did not seem to understand, but then again neither did Korath. Not yet. He only knew that something had changed, something fundamental, and he suspected that nothing would ever be the same again. The human shuttle was small, almost insultingly small compared to the massive warships that surrounded the Vorkath fleet. It drifted through space with casual confidence, as if it had nothing to fear from 300 enemy vessels. Admiral Korath watched it approach on his personal screen. His guards stood around him, weapons ready. His first officer had begged him to let soldiers accompany him to the meeting. Korath had refused. If the humans wanted to kill him, guards would not help, and if they truly wanted to talk, guards would only insult them. The shuttle landed in docking bay 7 with perfect precision. Its engines went quiet for a long moment. Nothing happened. Then the shuttle's door opened and Admiral Sarah Chen stepped out. She was smaller than Korath had expected. Humans were a small species in general, but Chen seemed especially compact. She wore a simple uniform with no weapons visible. Her hands were empty and open at her sides. She walked toward Korath as if she was meeting an old friend, not the commander of an invasion force. Admiral Korath, she said, extending her hand. Thank you for agreeing to speak with me. Korath looked at the offered hand. In Vorkth culture, such a gesture would be an insult. Offering an empty hand suggested the other person was not worth drawing a weapon for, but he had studied human customs. He knew this was meant as greeting. He took her hand carefully. His scaled grip could have crushed her fingers. He was gentle instead. Admiral Chen, he replied, you have me at a disadvantage. Your fleet surrounds mine. Your technology humiliates ours, and yet you ask to talk instead of demanding surrender. I confess I do not understand. Chen smiled slightly. Then let us find somewhere more comfortable, and I will try to explain. Korath led her to a conference room nearby. His guard stayed outside. The door closed, leaving the two admirals alone. They sat across from each other at a simple metal table. Chen folded her hands calmly. Korath kept his four hands flat on the surface where she could see them. Ask your questions, Chen said. I will answer what I can. Korath decided to be direct. Your fleet appeared from nowhere. 14,000 ships. We had no warning. We detected nothing until we arrived. How is that possible? Our ships use a form of stealth technology that bends space around them, Chen explained. To your sensors, they simply did not exist. We have been watching your fleet since it left Vorkath space. We tracked every course correction, every communication, every crew member's heartbeat. That Level of surveillance is impossible. 4. Your technology, yes, for hours it is. Routine. Chen paused. Admiral, I want you to understand something important. We are not trying to humiliate you. We are not trying to prove we are better than you. We are trying to show you the truth of your situation so you can make an informed choice. What choice? Chen leaned back in her chair. Let me tell you a story first. 300 years ago, humanity nearly destroyed itself. We had developed nuclear weapons, bombs that could level cities in a single flash. We built enough of them to wipe out all life on our planet dozens of times over. That seems excessive. It was insane, but we were afraid and fear made us stupid. Two great nations pointed their weapons at each other, and the rest of the world waited to die. Chen's eyes grew distant. I was born long after that time. But I have seen the records, the fear, the hatred, the certainty that the enemy was less than human and deserved to be destroyed. What stopped the destruction? Luck mostly. A few brave individuals who chose to trust each other when trust seemed impossible. A few moments of sanity in an ocean of madness. She focused on Korath again, but we learned from that experience, we learned that aggression without wisdom leads only to ash. We learned that the greatest enemies can become the closest friends if given the chance. Korath shifted uncomfortably. The Vorkath are not like humans. We have always been warriors. Our entire society is built on strength and conquest. So was ours. For thousands of years we conquered everything we could reach. We enslaved other humans. We destroyed entire cultures. We celebrated violence and called it glory. Chen shook her head. We were exactly like you, Admiral, perhaps worse. And if we could change, so can you. Why do you care if we change? You have the power to destroy us. Why not simply do so and remove a threat? Chen was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was soft. Because we have learned that every species we destroy is a universe of possibilities we will never see. Every culture we eliminate is a unique perspective on existence that is gone forever. We have become very powerful, Admiral, powerful enough to destroy civilizations with a thought, and that power terrifies us. You are afraid of yourselves constantly. Chen nodded. We know what we are capable of. We have seen the darkness inside our own hearts. We choose mercy not because we are weak, but because we know how easily we could become monsters. Every act of kindness is a victory against our own worst instincts. Korath considered this. It was so different from Vorkath philosophy. His people celebrated strength and saw mercy as weakness, but looking at the human admiral, he did not see weakness. He saw someone who had faced terrible choices and found a way to remain decent. What do you want from the Dominion? He asked finally. We want to offer you a partnership. A partnership after we came to conquer you? Yes. Chen smiled slightly. We know why your emperor sent you here. Your scouts detected an energy source beneath our Pacific Ocean. They were correct. It is a zero-point energy tap, a device that draws power from the fundamental structure of space itself. It produces unlimited clean energy. Forever. Koror's eyes widened. Such power source would transform the Dominion. It would end their constant need for expansion. It would solve problems they had struggled with for centuries. You would share this technology with us freely without conditions. We will give you the complete specifications. Your scientists can build as many as your civilization. Needs. Chen paused. That is what we do. Admiral, we share, we help, we build. Relationships instead of empires. In exchange for what? Nothing. Kor stared at her. Nothing. That makes no sense. Everything has a price, not everything. Chen leaned forward. We have learned that true security comes not from power over others, but from relationships with them. When we help you, we make you less likely to see us as enemies. When we share technology, we show that cooperation benefits everyone. When we offer mercy, we give you a reason to offer mercy in return. And if we take your technology and attack you anyway, then we will defend ourselves and you will lose badly, just as you would have lost today. But we do not think that will happen. Chen's eyes met his. You are not a fool, Admiral Koreth. You have seen what we can do. You have read your own history files about the Cathani and the Neth. You know that fighting us is suicide, yet you do not demand our submission. Submission is worthless. Slave obeys because they have no choice. A friend cooperates because they want to. We prefer friends. Koreth was quiet for a long time. His whole worldview was cracking apart. Everything he had been taught said the humans should be pressing their advantage. They should be demanding territory, resources, obedience. Instead, they offered gifts and asked for nothing. I do not have the authority to make agreements for the Dominion, he finally said. Only the Emperor can do that. We are not asking you to speak for your empire. Chen's voice was gentle. We are asking you to go home and tell your Emperor what you have learned. Tell him about our power. Tell him about our offer. Tell him that cooperation is possible if he chooses it. And what happens to my fleet? You leave right now. All 300 ships. You go home and you report what happened here. Kor could not believe what he was hearing. You would let us go after we came to invade your world. You came because your Emperor ordered you to come. You followed orders as any good soldier would. That is not a crime worthy of death. Chen stood up. Your fleet will leave with full fuel reserves. We will provide coordinates for a safe hyperspace route, and we will give you a data package containing the 0-point energy specifications. She walked toward the door, then paused. One more thing, Admiral. Your Emperor will not be pleased with this outcome. He sent you to conquer, and you are returning with friendship. He may try to punish you for this. I'm aware of that possibility. When you report to him, tell him this. We know about his plans, all of them. We know about his secret alliance with the Dravari. We know about his hidden weapon factories in the Outer Rim. We know about his daughter hiding on the 4th moon of Kathax. Koreth froze. The Emperor's daughter. She had been hidden away 20 years ago to protect her from political enemies. No one outside the Imperial family knew where she was. How do you know these things? Well, he whispered. We know everything, Admiral. We always have, and we have chosen to keep your secrets because we believe in giving people chances to make better choices. Chen opened the door. Tell your Emperor that his secrets are safe with us as long as he treats you fairly. You delivered peace when he demanded war. In our eyes, that makes you a hero. He should see you the same way. She stepped through the door, then she turned back one final time. Goodbye, Admiral Kareth. I hope we meet again someday as friends. She walked away. Her shuttle departed minutes later, and Admiral Koreth sat alone in the conference room holding the future of his entire civilization in his fore. Shaking hands, for the first time in his life he had been given a choice that did not involve killing someone. He was not sure how to feel about that, but as he returned to his bridge and gave the order to withdraw, he realized something surprising. He felt hope. It was a strange feeling for a Vorkath warrior. But perhaps he thought it was time for Vorkath warriors to learn new feelings. Perhaps it was time for everything to change. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so crowded. Species that had not spoken in centuries were pressed together in the viewing galleries. Diplomats who normally avoided each other were whispering in urgent huddles. The air crackled with tension and disbelief. Everyone had heard the news. The Vorkath invasion fleet had returned home, all 300 ships undamaged, unconquered, and carrying technology that would change their civilization forever. Old Ambassador Bait Curran of the Thessari sat in his floating chair, watching the chaos with quiet satisfaction. For 200 years he had kept humanity's secret. For 200 years he had watched other species dismiss Earth as primitive and irrelevant. Now finally, the truth was emerging. The chamber doors opened. The council fell silent. A human walked in. She was tall for her species, with silver-streaked brown hair and eyes that seemed to see everything at once. She wore a simple dark suit with no medals or decorations. She walked with the quiet confidence of someone who had nothing to prove. Behind her came Admiral Thax Kareth, the Vorkath warrior who had led the invasion fleet. Now walked beside a human as if they were old friends. His scales had returned to their healthy dark green color. His posture was different, somehow still proud but no longer aggressive. The two of them walked to the center podium together. Members of the Galactic Council, the human woman announced, "My name is Ambassador Elena Reyes. I represent Earth and the human species. After 200 years of silence, we have decided it is time to take our seat among you." The chamber erupted in noise, questions, protests, demands for explanation. The speaker pulsed, frantically trying to restore order. It took several minutes for the crowd to calm down. "We have many questions that require answers," the speaker finally managed. "Why did you hide for so long? Why did you pretend to be primitive? What are your intentions toward the other species of this council?" Elelina nodded calmly. "All fair questions. Let me address them one at a time." She activated the chamber's holographic display. A timeline appeared, stretching back thousands of years. 300 years ago, humanity developed faster than light travel. We were excited to explore the galaxy. We were eager to meet other species, but we also remembered our own history, a history filled with violence, conquest, and destruction. The display showed images from human history, wars, invasions, mushroom clouds rising over cities. We knew what we were capable of. We had nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times. So, before we introduced ourselves to the galaxy, we decided to watch, to learn, to understand what we were getting into. "And what did you learn?" VTH asked. Though he already knew the answer, we learned that the galaxy was just as violent as we had been. Species conquered each other constantly. Empires rose and fell in cycles of war. The strong took from the weak and called it natural law. Elelina paused. We realized that if we revealed ourselves, we would be drawn into these conflicts. Our technology would be used for war. Our power would corrupt us just as it had corrupted so many others. So you hid, the speaker said. We hid, we watched, we developed our technology in secret, and we waited for the right moment to emerge. What made this the right moment? Alina gestured toward Korath. The Vorkath invasion showed us something important. It showed us that we could defend ourselves without destroying others. It showed us that we could offer mercy instead of vengeance. And it showed us that even the most aggressive species can choose a different path. Korra stepped forward. His voice rumbled through the chamber. I came to Earth as a conqueror. I expected to find primitives to enslave. Instead, I found a civilization so far beyond mine that they could have destroyed my fleet with a single command. He paused, letting that sink in. They did not. They offered me knowledge instead of death. They gave me technology instead of chains. They treated me as an equal, even when I did not deserve it. He turned to face the Vorkath delegation. High Ambassador Drax Volomax sat among them, his scales pale with barely contained fury. I have spoken with the Emperor. Korath continued. He has accepted the human offer. The Dominion will receive zero-point energy technology. Our people will never need to conquer for resources again. In exchange, we will join humanity as partners in building a better galaxy. Drax exploded from his seat. This is treason. You were sent to conquer, not to negotiate. The Emperor has made his decision. Korath interrupted calmly. He understands, as I now understand, that true strength is knowing when not to fight. The humans taught me this. Perhaps someday they will teach you as well. Drax sputtered but had no response. He slumped back into his seat. Defeated, Alina resumed speaking. We are not here to take over the council. We are not here to impose our will on others. We are here to offer the same thing we offered the Fork Partnership. The display changed again. This time it showed technology, specifications, medical advances, agricultural improvements, energy systems, transportation methods. We will share our technology freely with any species that asks. We will provide knowledge without demanding payment. We will help solve problems without expecting submission. She looked around the chamber. All we ask in return is that you consider a different way of living, that you think about cooperation instead of conquest, that you choose to build instead of destroy. What if we refuse? Someone called out. What if we prefer the old ways? Alina's expression remained calm. Then you will continue as you have always continued. We will not force anyone to change. That is not our way, but we will also defend ourselves and our partners against aggression. Those who choose violence should understand that they will face consequences. She paused, letting her words settle over the chamber. We have hidden for 200 years because we were afraid not of you but of ourselves. We were afraid that our power would corrupt us. We were afraid that we would become the monsters we had always fought against, but hiding forever was never an option. Someday we had to choose what kind of species we wanted to be. Her voice grew stronger. We choose to be guardians. We choose to be teachers. We choose to be friends, not because we are perfect, but because we know what imperfection looks like. We have stared into the darkness of our own hearts, and we have decided that the darkness will not win. She stepped back from the podium. That is all I have to say. Seat of Earth has been empty for 200 Years, today we claim it not as conquerors but as partners. The galaxy is entering a new era. We hope you will join us in making it better. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, Ambassador VTH Curran began to applaud. His old hands made a soft, clapping sound that echoed through the vast space. Others joined him, first a few, then dozens, then hundreds. Not everyone. Some species sat with crossed arms and suspicious eyes, but enough to show that Alina's words had found their mark. As the applause continued, Alina walked to the human seat. It was a simple chair, dusty from 2 centuries of disuse. She sat down and looked out at the gathered species of the galaxy. For the first time since the Council's founding, Earth had a voice. 6 months later, Admiral Sarah Chen stood on a viewing platform orbiting Earth. The planet turned slowly. Below her, its blue oceans and green continents glowing in the sunlight. A chime indicated an incoming message. She smiled when she saw the sender. Admiral Korath, it is good to hear from you. The Vorkath's face appeared on her screen. He looked different now, calmer. His scales had taken on a healthier color, and there was something like peace in his yellow eyes. Admiral Chen, I wanted to thank you again for everything you have done. You did the hard part, Korath. You made the choice. Perhaps, but you gave me the choice too. Make. He paused. I have been appointed as the Dominion's ambassador to Earth. The Emperor felt that I had the most experience with human culture. Chen laughed. I look forward to working with you. There is more. I have been teaching young Vorkath about my experience, about what I learned from humanity. Some of them are beginning to understand. They are beginning to see that strength does not require cruelty. Change takes time, but every journey begins with a single step. Korath nodded. A human saying, I am learning. Many of them, they are surprisingly wise. After the call ended, Chen remained at the viewing platform. She watched as a small ship rose from Earth's surface, a greeting vessel heading out to meet a species that had just achieved faster than light travel for the first time. The ship carried no weapons, only gifts, knowledge, and an offer of friendship. Behind it, invisible to normal sensors, 100 human warships maintained silent vigil. They would protect the greeting vessel if needed. They would defend the young species from anyone who tried to harm them. Guardians, teachers, friends. Humanity had spent 200 years hiding from the galaxy. Now they would spend the next 200 years healing it. It would not be easy. There would be setbacks and failures. Some species would reject the offer of friendship. Some conflicts could not be solved with words alone. But Chen believed in the mission. She believed in the idea that the galaxy could be better. She believed that even the most violent species could learn to choose peace. After all, humans had learned, and they had been the most violent of all. The greeting vessel disappeared into the stars, carrying hope toward a new civilization. And somewhere in the vastness of space, young species was about to discover that they were not alone, and that the universe was far more welcoming than they had ever imagined. This was not the end of the story. It was only the